Hi guys. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of the Hackaball story. So normally when we would go and sort of share the Hackaball story at conferences, we would talk about how this little side project that could come to be. But instead I really wanted to talk about how, as a female-led team, we really designed Hackaball to be specifically gender neutral. So I joined Made by Many a little over a year and a half ago, and I've spent that last year having the privilege to work with a team of creative technologists, hardware designers, as well as the internal product team at Made by Many to bring Hackaball to life. So what is Hackaball? I'm sure you guys are all wondering. Well, we took it to Kickstarter in March of this year, and so I'll show you a little bit of that video just to give you a little bit of an explainer for that.
Hackaball is a ball that responds instantly to how you play with it, with lights, sounds, and even vibrations. You could say it's a computer you could throw.
At Hackaball, we wanted to think differently about technology, make it strong and tactile, not fragile, mix active play with children's inborn creativity. The idea is to introduce kids to simple ways to program and make their own games, so they can learn by having fun, do it themselves or play together. That's our goal with Hackaball. Here's Will, he'll show you how it goes.
Thanks, Al. It's easy. You can tell the Hackaball what to do using the app. There's a game I made called Hit It Up. When the game starts, the ball goes yellow. When I tap, then I've programmed it to count the hits. That's how you make Hit Me Up.
So essentially, Hackaball is a connected toy which teaches kids the principles of programming through play. And we really made this for three primary reasons. So one, there's this general consensus that technology as a career is growing, and there's this massive need for kids especially to start to learn programming very early. So we wanted to create a really compelling and active way for them to learn the principles of programming. The second is active play. A lot of the tools out there right now are kids are tethered to an iPad or they're stuck at their desk. We really wanted to create an experience where they could design something that they could play with and then run away at the end of the day and go do what kids do best, which is run around, play, be active and creative. And then finally, the last aspect is to make sure to enforce creative play. So creativity is increasingly important, and we wanted to be sure to create a system that would not only let kids sort of fundamentally learn, but also let them be creative at the same time. And so we think that Hackaball really serves all of these needs by being a sort of Internet of Things object, by separating kids from screens day to day, helping them learn the fundamentals of that programming logic. So if I shake the ball, it should turn a random color. So if it turns red, it's truth, it's blue, it's dare. This is how I'm making all of my own endless games. And then also encouraging creative thinking. So I'm sure I absolutely don't need to tell anyone in this room that there's a persistent problem with the presence of women in technology. And something that was really interesting that our team looked into was there was this report that was done earlier this year by NPR, which I guess is the American version of the BBC. I'm sorry, forgive my cultural ignorance in these ways. So essentially, there's been a massive growth in all of the sciences education in women in higher education over the last 50 years. But so you see all those growing lines around medical school, law school, and physical sciences, but this red line here has this massive dip down after 1980s, and so after the 1980s. And so Planet Money took a look into this, and they found that it essentially correlated with the type of marketing that was happening during that time. So while the personal PC was starting to be a thing that you could do at home, and while the Atari and the Commodore 64 were becoming increasingly popularized, The problem was that it was entirely marketed as a boys' activity or figure. And this had a direct effect on how women especially perceived science and engineering to be going forward. And this is something that is a sort of continued issue to today. This is a screenshot I took just yesterday on a toy store website where you can see that there's a Toys for Girls section and a Toys for Boys section, and the boys section happens to have more electronics, building, and learning sets in it as well. So we started to ask ourselves, if we are building a product that's supposed to help get kids excited about technology and help them learn the fundamentals of programming, how can we make it something that's accessible for both boys and girls? And we did this in 3 primary ways by asking ourselves 3 different types of questions. So the first is trying to figure out what girls especially wanted out of Hackaball. And something that's fundamental to the Made by Many process is anyone who's also familiar with Lean Startup, they do a similar process, which is you make something, you test it as quickly as possible, and then you learn from that. So the way that we did this is we took either screens that we designed in InDesign or Keynote, and we took an early prototype of the ball, and we actually went into homes around London with kids, and we tested several different things with them. So one of these things was was iconography. So for example, we want this to work for kids as young as 6. So literacy levels absolutely range during this time for kids. So we wanted to be able to make sure if you're going to make a rule like drop the ball or kick it fast or make sure that you throw it and it has a hard impact, do kids understand this when they're building the rules into the game? So we started testing with them by taking a set of icons. We designed several sets and took that into their homes and had them sort to help us understand what icons would and would not work with them.
That's drop. Okay, that's drop.
That's tap twice.
And you know what dropping is? Yes. Okay. Okay. Do for shake.
This one. Yeah.
That one there? Okay, why'd you pick that one?
Because it's miraculous. It's miraculous.
Rockets, yeah?
Okay, this is possibly drop.
Good. Why do you think that's better?
Because it's got this nice big arrow.
Okay.
Okay, kick. Yeah, that's definitely kick.
Okay.
Okay. Shaken.
Why do you think that one's shaken then?
And then the next is we started to ask kids what they expected or wanted out of the experience. So we have hours of footage, I'm only showing you guys selected snippets, but when we designed the environment and we specifically chose something like space as a theme, does that feel open enough for them? Do they understand how the games are structured? Do they know when to start playing? And are these things that are even appealing to them?
What do you think this screen is for?
For playing it.
Yes. So in
You could look around because it's like a world. You look around, turn around.
And then finally, when we're specifically talking about things like gender neutrality, we sat down with all of the boys and all of the girls in our user research and did ask them the question, do you think this is a game for boys or for girls? And I think we got a lot of interesting answers out of that also helped us shape the design of the product. So in a lot of these screens right now, you're seeing just the iPad experience, but at the same time, we were prototyping the actual ball itself. So how would it light up? Does it make sounds? How is it reacting to the iPad at the same time? So this is just one example of how a group of girls responded to this question.
You see this, do you think this is a game for girls or is it a game for boys?
I think it's a mix. Because mix both themed. Then you've also got pink around, but
Yeah, but not all
girls should like pink.
I like pink, but it's not my favorite color. It's not my favorite.
It was Lou's favorite. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So one, those girls are definitely living my 90s fashion dream. And two, I think that the idea of color and gender is really important, and it plays into how we ended up designing the product in the end, so that's something that's also really important that we're going to come back to. So basically, how do you know what kids want? I think the luxury that we had, because we are a small company and we were doing this internally, is that we were able to put it in front of kids right away and get feedback right away. So I think we had the absolute luxury of getting to ask and then receive the answers that we were looking for. And then secondly, how could we accommodate different types of play? And when you're talking about the basic principles of logic and programming, it's a very linear experience. So a lot of the fundamentals of the games are built around if this, then that. So if I shake the ball, does it turn a color? Does it make a sound? If I move the ball too fast, what happens? And in the early stages of the testing, we were doing the test with these sort of static block cards, which were the basics of the interface that we were going to design. And a big revelation that we had was something where a lot of the girls kept asking us, why are we doing these actions? Can we add in reasons for why these are happening? And what ended up happening is that allowed them to make a bunch of different stories out of games, and it really opened up the type of gameplay that we were allowed to offer. So suddenly you had to move the ball slowly because it was a dragon's egg, and if you shook it too much, it would wake up the mother dragon. Or this is my alien from space, and it makes these woo-woo-woo-woo noise whenever I drop it really fast because it's entering the atmosphere. Or it's this magical gem that I happen to find in a cave, and it turns any color that I want it to. So we were suddenly able, from this really little piece of research and opening it up, open up and make it much freer for both boys and girls, accommodating both their needs for really active play as well as storytelling-centered play. So it was really important for us to learn that kids' imaginations are limitless, and it was a mistake on our ends to be sort of putting boundaries around what the ball could be, because we were initially assuming as adults that any game is a game that only takes place between me and another person and the ball, but we didn't think about, I could be playing with it by myself and it's an imaginary object, or a kid could want to use it to facilitate a story that they're telling. And then finally, how do we sort of remove bias overall? And something that we heard initially a lot that was really important is, and you heard in that video, some girls have the favorite color pink, others don't, and we really didn't want to have to ascribe a color to the object at the very beginning. So this is a very early rendering that we did around what it looks like when the lights are turned off. And the very first function that you get when you open the ball in the package and you pair it with the application is that you can name your ball. And then you can also set your starting color at any given time, so that when it's at rest, if it comes in, you can see I can set it to be blue or turquoise or a mix of rainbow colors. There's any sort of number of colors that kids can ascribe to it, and that is a reflection of their own personalities rather than something that we're sort of predefining for them. So those were the three sort of primary things. How do we let them define it themselves? How can we make play as open as possible? And then how can we sort of make sure to check by asking them first? So if you have any questions around how we did the design process, how we brought a Kickstarter to life and raised $250,000, how is the production going in China? You can, any of those questions. I'm around for a bit, so happy to answer those. And thank you guys for the time.